So we are very fortunate to have two great readers here tonight. We'll start with our poetic opener, Gisela Ruebsaat. Gisela has performed her poems at academic and literary events, including the International Symposium on Poetic Inquiry in Vancouver and Montreal, the Inquiry and Innovation Institute in New York, and the Soulfood-Lesebuhne, okay, thank you, in Marburg, Germany. Gisela's ekphrastic poems and poetry walks based on public art were featured in the Oak Bay Arts Alive Festival in 2018 and 19. And in 2020, her poem Communion won first prize at Planet Earth Poetry's All We Need Is Love contest. And her poem, A Tale Told to My Daughter on Her Wedding Day, won second prize in the Island Writer Poetry Competition. Heart Mechanic, Gisela's debut collection, was published in 2016. Please welcome Gisela Ruebsaat.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. How's that for sound? Is it good? Okay. Well, thank you to Zoe and Nancy and everybody who works behind the scenes to make this happen. I know there's a lot of invisible work. So thanks, and thanks everyone for coming. And I'm honored to be reading with Maureen this evening, and I look forward to hearing your work, Maureen. I've done a lot of ocean swimming this summer and fall, and so I've been reflecting on the role that bodies of water play in shaping the narratives of our lives. So I've selected some poems that explore that theme. The first couple are kind of coming of age poems. And the first one is titled Tidewater. The tide is up, the seawater brown, opaque, fresh waters flowing in from the Fraser. At this moment, that mix of ocean and river water warmed by the sand that sits silent in the sun, the shallows of the long afternoon. We have waited for this moment, have watched our mothers, Helga and Ursula, swim out always together, always the breaststroke. My friend Monica and I, watching the surge of the sea, our swimsuits slick against our slim child bodies, sand sticks between our toes as we walk toward the water. Things are quieter at this time of day. Lifeguards pack up ring buoys and ropes, climb down from their high chair watchtowers. Families pack up towels, leftover lunches. The water on the wharf now deep enough for us to dive. We've waited all day for this moment, the convergence of temperature and tide, the sun a fireball floating on the horizon. My friend Monica and I, two German girls, navigating their way to a new continent, toes gripping the edge of the wooden wharf, lifted afloat by tide water, hands poised over our heads, knees flexed, ready to dive. Just on the cusp, our chests still flat, our footprints behind us, marking the mudflats of the intertidal zone. Okay, the next one is Riptide. The idea is not to panic. That's all he said to me, the guy who dove in to save me off rocks near the lighthouse, off that point of land into ocean, after I uttered the word help, only once at low volume, so as not to draw too much attention to myself. 16, swimming only yards from shore, the word help at low volume, so as not to alarm the picnickers, couples with baskets of food on blankets on land. I'm in a riptide, a parallel universe, breaststroking strong in seawater, but not moving forward. I don't raise my hand, I need it for the stroke. He surfaces, his head inches behind my left shoulder, his tone crystal. The idea is not to panic. Uttered as I imagine a lover's whisper might sound under sheets. No one else will hear this, so I keep swimming, slow down my breath so it matches his, steady like the voice, the stroke, and held inside this slow rhythm, we inch towards land, breathing, arrive together. I clamber on shore, dripping alone. He's slipped away as if to suggest I had saved myself. I step from rock to show I can walk. Barnacles cut my naked feet. I can still stay upright. For the first time, I see him on dry land, the only other one there with a need to dry off. He's squat in stature, close-cut beard, hair on short legs, wide feet, thick arms, knuckles that seem to graze the ground. He looks like a species of beach gorilla, vital but endangered when out of his element. He wears a low-rise brief, a red strip of cloth stretched glossy over the groin. Poised there in stitches, I catch sight of the bull, embroidered on the crotch fabric, a bull. It's a true story. I'm serious, it's a true story. With measured steps, I make my approach. The others enjoy their picnic. I feel a need for both greeting and farewell. I reach out, seawater still glossing my teenager's limbs. Our slippery palms touch with a smell of salt, a lingering tang. We shake hands. Thank you, is what I say. Another girl, voluptuous, sits next to him watching, smart enough to see that telltale ripple on the surface, that sign of mortal danger to those like me that plunge into a riptide. She stays seated, silent, this older girl, and whether she wears a one-piece, two-piece, or a bright bikini, I do not know. Okay, I'm going to switch geography now, moving on to A Tale of Rivers and an intergenerational narrative. And like many things, it begins with my mother. Okay, there's a couple of terms in there that most of you will know, but in case you need a refresher, a catechism is a summary of religious doctrine, and credo comes from the word creed, and it refers to an underlying principle that guides our actions. And a credo is also often a reference to a musical version of the creed. So the terms credo and catechism come up in this poem. Okay, baptismal rites. 1, the bridge and the rope. And this begins with my mother. The bridge and the rope. Turn 80, travel in a van to the Kootenay River. Remember your mother, she never learned to swim. Get out at a place called Thrums. Strip down to your swimsuit. Find the abandoned railway bridge. Grab hold of the rope attached to it. Swing yourself into space high over the water. Let go. Don't try to swim. Float on your back, swept along by the current. Get back out onto dry land before the Kootenay flows into the Columbia. Follow the footpath back upstream to the bridge and the rope. Pick up your sandals and funeral clothes along the way. 2, whirlpool practice. Turn 16, ride your bike to the Rhine River. Plunge in with your clothes on. Once in the water, kick off your shoes, then off with the coat. Swim towards the whirlpool. Let the current take you under to where the spiral narrows. Propel yourself sideways. Once freed, swim to the surface. See your father, the instructor, watching from shore. When it comes to your friend's turn, go down again, this time together. It's 1940. Bring her back alive. 3, swimming in the New World. Turn 29, take passage over the Atlantic on a freighter. Take a train west across prairie into mountains. Find the Shuswap River. Invite your sister to come from Germany. Invite her for a swim. Have a picnic on the beach. Watch your husband and sister wade into the water, then disappear. You stay on shore. Watch your 3 children. Watch your husband walk out of the water alone. Wait 3 days while the police start and finish their search. Listen when they say the body was found below the falls, neck broken. Keep your eyes closed till the priest takes your hand, plants it on your sister's corpse. 4. Floodwaters, the Catechism. Turn 31, get pregnant. Start your contractions. With your husband, get in the car in Castlegar. Start the drive to Nelson. See how the Kootenay River floods the road. Stop at a place called Tagum. Give birth on the front seat, legs toward the passenger door. Close your eyes. Give this daughter your dead sister's name, Gisela. Give her a godmother called Grace. Get your daughter to recite these lessons. Make sure she writes them down. 5. The Credo. Daughter, friend, sister, mother. Kootenay, Rhine, Shuswap, Kootenay. Okay, so I'm now switching gears and we're moving out of water mode into, well, I'm going to go back to the word credo because it refers to a musical setting. And my next and final poem is about music. And that's to me another underlying shaper of story. How many people here like to sing? Okay, well, look at that. I mean, it's not a sing-along, but I sing in 2 choirs. And this piece is a reference to a piece we sang in one choir called Prayer for Ukraine. And this is a kind of a hymn that was written in 1855 when Imperial Russia was suppressing the use of the Ukrainian language. And it's been sung as part of church services internationally in response to the Russian invasion. And it's been sung in Ukraine historically during times of famine, hardship, and oppression. So it's a very powerful piece. And singing it in the Ukrainian language was a very powerful experience. So I wrote a poem about it. Trying to sing in Ukrainian. It helps that I'm in a church, standing close in an ensemble, a pack. Some of us clap, others might tap. It helps that I'm in a sanctuary. To warm up our voices, our tongues, we make guttural sounds. They seem to arrive from nowhere. We sing Prayer for Ukraine. We stand grouped under the cross. This hymn holds a history. The Holodomor, Hitler and Stalin on the doorstep. Punishment if you speak your native tongue. Lord, O the great and almighty, protect our beloved Ukraine. Boze bile kiedine, nam Ukraine, Ukraine. My tongue curls up, touches my palate. Breath comes up from deep in my diaphragm, struggles to get out. I greet these sounds as they surface from a place, a language populated by consonants, hard to pronounce, a lot of weight to hold, with little space for those open vowels that carry the breath outward into song. Bless her with freedom and light of your holy rays. The musical number we sing, the number of bodies in Bucha, the musical clefs marked on a page I look at now. I'm an alto, but I can read the bass clef in case of emergency. With this kind of music and performance, you never know. I may lose my place. I may need to jump down, find my way to the tenor part, as if going underground, the sound carrying me in or out of a time, a place, a tunnel I must navigate. Those lines of Cyrillic script, lettering laid out on the page, a passage dark and closed, a track taking us singers further toward that imagined speck of light. In this choir, the script held in our hands. Bless us, O Lord, with good fortune, with learning and knowledge, enlighten us, your children. To learn this music, we listen for tone, the history it holds. We answer as an echo, blending in, bouncing back from afar, call and response. An arc of sound travels the distance, a cry, a moan, forms itself into a word, a prayer. Let us, O Lord, grow. May we forget the very idea of language, the meaning of words. May some spark survive this rough passage we navigate into music. An animal calls out, a dog lifts its head, stretches its neck upward, cries out, calls the pack to assemble, howls, in this music to the moon, beautiful and dismal, shining still bright in the night sky. Thanks.
Thank you, Gisela. How beautiful. All the water images and ending with that hymn to Ukraine. Thank you so much. So our featured reader is Maureen Hynes. Maureen lives in Dish with One Spoon territory. I love that. Also known as Toronto, not as poetic. And is the author of 6 collections of poetry. She has won the League of Canadian Poets Gerald Lampert Award and was shortlisted for the Raymond Souster Award, the Golden Crown Literary Award for Lesbian Writers in the US, and twice for the Pat Lowther Award. A strong theme of journeys is threaded through Hynes' Take the Compass. Poems can be journeys of repair and recovery, adventure and discovery. However, even when our journeying is confined or curtailed, we are still traveling. And one of those journeys is discovering where language can take us. Hynes' collection is a search for tools and instruments that will ward off adversity and sustain social justice. They point to sources of remedy, repair, and renewal, and to the sustaining power of love. Wow. I did look up a little interview with you. You were asked, do you see poetry as a form of activism? And this is what you said, if you don't remember. In some ways, yes, of course, as we try to be more authentically ourselves in the world and engage with it as it really is. That is, for some people, a form of activism. For me, this engagement requires an awakeness, a presence, a vitality to really take in what's happening in the world, and then to witness what is going on, even if you can't change it, at least not alone or right away. So let's welcome Maureen.
Oh, thank you so much, Nancy, for that lovely introduction and these words that I don't remember. And thanks to everyone who works on the Planet Earth series and folks at Russell Books. I want to also give special thanks to people who helped me with this book. Jim Johnstone was one of my editors, as was John Rybatanz. And I was very honored to have the poem selected, the book selected by McGill Queen's University Press, because they have, one thing is they have a very wonderful book designer named David Drummond. And you've probably noticed the cover, which is a melting compass. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, how brilliant, but it reminds me of Dali, and, which I thought was great. So we have this melting compass that's taking us through the world. Okay, so I'm going to start with the title poem, Take the Compass. And so take the compass, take the harp, take the Fitbit and the Band-Aid box. Fold the whole gray sheet of sky, lumpy and unalluring, into your rucksack. The song of woe, the itch, and the predatory US dollar will follow you without invitation. No keys or paper needed for this journey. Pack needle and nail, thread and wire, fragrant cathedral beeswax. The air recently flapped under a gull's wing. A shoe pebble to make you stop and rest and puzzle where your other pains come from. Carry curiosity and confusion in your hand, stroke them with feathers and prick
them with thorns to keep them alive. Wash your face in fog, your hands in hopelessness. Sorry, in hopefulness. Sorry. No journey is completed without yearning and a sustained mercy for the walkers, the harpists, the injured, the hatless, and the lost. Next poem is called Can the Most Recently Dead? Can the most recently dead become our spirit guides? Can they cross back into the calamities of our world to nudge us into action, open-heartedness, persistence? Or must they assume another form, avian, oceanic, oaken, riverine, or stone? Can they swim back to us through the newly discovered ice age channel beneath Montreal to warn us that our comforts will be shredded, our homes flooded or burned, our soil salted and dreams dissolved if we don't speak out for the air, the oceans, the planet's creatures, the miracles beyond? The next poem I'll read is called Treasury. Seems she must collect a stone, a ribbon, a coin, a basket, a bus ticket or a bracelet from each country she visits, each lover she's had, a rough stone for scratching out grim months, a smooth millefiori glass weight for tossing into a star-reflecting lake on an August night, a basket, the smaller the better, as the willow or raffia or roots dry and crackle. Seems she needs to press her fingers against some other woman's handiwork. Imagine her skill, her life. Can she pawn the jewelry, hammered silver, slender wire, broken clasp? She needs the coins and tickets for her return, but what color? What fabric for the ribbon? Is it silk or twine or rope for rescue or ascent? The next poem is called Museum Eyes, i.e. to make part of a museum. How to display for public memory the strikers' defiant footsteps, their songs and chants, the overhead helicopters, the fears of those kettled into an intersection, tear-gassed and baton beaten. In room after room hang banners, spread placards and photographs at eye level within 100 glass cases. Lay open the enormous post-contact books, superbly scribed and illuminated, the colonial laws and exclusions, punishments and executions. Suspend the frayed and bloody bullet-holed shirt in its own tall glass case. Is it enough, the small placard with the wearer's name and the April 1916 date? How brown the blood after a century. Make note of the resistance, the readiness to say no. Sit on the park bench beside the nameless bronze figures chatting with each other. With your back to the Stonewall pub, warm their hands, ask how long it took to smile again after the police. This poem is called The Dazzle Time, and it's sort of invoking the spirit of the artist. It's coming from David Milne. And like many poets, I got very grabbed by writing about the pandemic. I tried to limit the amount of pandemic poems in this book, but it was hard. But this is called The Dazzle Time. The skies are emptying of airplanes, but filling with drones. My mind is crammed with intentions that take off, but never land. They hover mid-air at the gray horizon, shadowing the late afternoon sun. What strange internalized days we are thrust into, some welcoming them, most chafing against their blankness. David Milne, married twice, but a solitary man, painted city streets, lakes, and leafy trees, pressed fan-shaped flat against the sky, often a woman sewing or reading in a wicker chair, a still life with a cobalt blue medicine bottle, whatever's in front of me. Developed the practice of leaving a blank space somewhere in the canvas, called it the dazzle area. One unpainted building, say, in a crowded cityscape to snatch and release your attention, engage it elsewhere on the canvas. Blank. Before it meant white, it meant to shine, to flash, to burn. Is this the blank spot in our years? Can we polish our inner lives in isolation, brighten our songs and odes? But now it's time for more window gazing. The number of kids in the tiny park behind our house, 0. This poem called Kind of Blue invokes the spirit of Miles Davis, his trumpet. And also it touches on the pandemic. Kind of blue. Well, we're all kind of blue now. Blue poured over the entire world, like that long ago image above a storefront in Chengdu. I didn't understand the Chinese characters, but the tipped can pouring its viscous liquid over the globe, thickest at the North Pole, streaming over Siberia, slipping past the equator over Lima, New Delhi, Cape Town, fluid fingers of paint grabbing the world from above. Now, every time I hear the virus's name, I see it printed in 48-point sky blue Helvetica on a blank page, a neighbor's front door, my bar of soap. But Miles, thank you for those long, tender trumpet notes carrying our sadness, climbing it up into smoothness, that particular kind of everywhere sans serif sorrow. And coming up is a poem called Elementary. And the first line is borrowed from Robin Fraser's poem, The Hunger of Sound. Elementary. It's time to begin the alphabet, specifically the Greek one, whose first 2 letters name the whole mighty string of symbols that we give to 4-year-olds, an endless thread placed in their hands like the one for numbers. But with this September's turbulence begins the renaming of hurricanes and tropical cyclones. We used to call them after saints' feast days, such a large supply. Then we turn to Anglo names, Brenda and Charles and Doris, stopping this year at Wilfred, like my uncle, the doctor. We retired the names of storms that had swallowed uncountable lives and homes and shorelines, Hazel, Katrina, Sandy. It's early now in cyclone season to have used up the year's list of hurricane names, so we're starting again with Alpha, Beta, Gamma. Will 24 letters be enough to spell out this year's loss, death, hubris? Still so many lessons, churning, unlearned. On Midwinter Day, this is a poem I wrote during a workshop on Midwinter Day in December, based on the work of Bernadette Mayers, who wrote an entire book called Midwinter Day. The unconscious likes to hide its intentions, surplus motives and credit cards, its file of inventions and evasions. In the studio, I noticed but did not remark upon the gray torso, a dress form so essential to the proper fitting of a garment. How lovely her arms were, how smooth her hands, as if sculpted. I see the new father crouching on the floor, beside him a photo of his newborn. I recall the picture of me in France, standing in the open door of a train about to depart the Gare du Nord. I look happy, but my father on the platform is in tears to see me leave. It is 1985. I am 37 years old. There is no young man about to fire a gun, no one who's grabbed me from behind and is about to choke me. What is the fabric of the veil behind which the unconscious hides? Is it a net curtain with hundreds of sequins, or steel mesh, or plant-based like a lavender sachet. Oh, those tiny purple buds on every stem. What I love most in the garden is to grip a stalk of rosemary at its base and gently pull my hand up over its pointy tips, walk around with my hand covering my nose and mouth until the scent fades. The loss of a child in a school shooting never fades. I stand at the studio window, watch a young woman in a red parka, the handle of a huge purse over her arm. She walks alone into the night that will be a minute or two shorter than last night. I've got a couple, I'm coming near the end, I've got a couple of new poems that I'd like to read, and they're a whole lot lighter than the ones I've been reading. This is called Paean. Praise the praline and the pram. Praise all things sticky and sweet and the infancy of every person on earth. Praise the promise and the low, low price and every prize ever won, whether for a race or a baking contest or your fat cauliflowers. Praise the ribbons. Praise the prairie and its limitless presence in the center of our continent, our minds. No need really to praise the prairie oyster, that potion of egg yolk and Worcestershire sauce prescribed for hangovers. Praise the pansy and the petunia, and do not forget the lavish, luscious peony, the knot of its hard bud, and its multifoliate opening, one petal at a time. Always praise papyrus for its progeny, the page. Praise the perennial love of good friends and faithful encouragers. Praise the parapets and people who step out onto them to peer at a sunset or sunrise. Praise the poodles and the world's pets and their loyalty or their peskiness. Praise what is precious but had to be left behind in the flood. Praise passion, praise persistence, praise poetry, and you can always praise prose. This poem is called For Your Head, and I have to thank Zoe for quoting parts of this poem in the promotion she wrote, or I think it was Zoe wrote for this reading. For your head, make a halo, a wreath, a circlet of bright green aspen leaves. Crown your dismal thoughts and unruly feelings with a tiara. Find small red things, a cranberry, a rosehip, or yewberry to trim your sorrow-filled week, to be the eyes that your eyes can't see out of. With grass dew, paste a rose petal on your forehead and smear a lick of honey on each earlobe to sweeten whatever you hear. Breathe in jasmine to intensify your memories. Pick 4 small leaves, one for hope, one for trust, one for rage, the last for desire. Lay each briefly on your tongue, just taste, don't swallow. Open your mouth, let their power beam into the world's countless troubled and troubling zones. This next poem is called Be Planetary. And it quotes Etel Adnan, who was an artist and university professor and poet and author, very prolific. Her dates are 1925 to 2021. Arlene Paré and I share a great admiration for Etel Adnan. Be planetary, the poet advises. Live without horizons, acclimatize to a new light cycle. Dawn or dusk may take eons to arrive. Accept what she calls the violence of sunset, a violence she admires. What do planets do that we could emulate? Of course, the circling, an orbital reverence for the sun, roiling in the dark spinning bath with asteroids and our planet cousins, ringed or ringless, rocky or gassy, metallically colorful. But also a loneliness the planets don't seem to mind, perhaps even prefer. Would we retain all our senses but touch? It seems a fearless self-sufficiency, a distance from companions that would frighten me, but she calls it the calmness of your spirit. I will work on this. I have a love poem I want to read. Let's hope I have it. Ranunculus, that's the flower, you know. I bring you an armful, a dozen tightly whorled, 100-petaled flowers whose bouquet meaning is, I am dazzled by your charms. Ranunculus, Latin for little frog, a name you could salsa dance to, shout out to your uncles when you see them walking to church from your bus window. A flower only like frogs in its fondness for crouching by a stream not too shaded, though in their white or pink or purple petals, they are more colorful than frogs. My love, I too want to sit by a sun-mottled stream with you and your uncles, and maybe even an aunt or two, the older the better. When the flowers' petals dry out and start to drop, don't toss them. Grind them with jojoba oil and rub the medicine on your sore fingers and knees to soothe any aches. Look, I've brought you a mortar and the stone's pestle is frog-shaped. Okay, and then I'm going to end with a poem called Hunky Dory. As in everything is. Everything's hunky-dory. Luckily, I have a lot of highbrow knickknacks, a hurdy-gurdy and a ship-shaped buzzsaw, quicksilver shoe shine and flim-flam pajamas, all kind of loosey-goosey. TikToks for the stock pock, a crackerjack and flip-flops that go clip-clop if you jazz up the soles with some clunky razzmatazz doodads. Streams and streams of sticky ticker tape picked up off the wet streetscape after a rainy parade to celebrate the wicked war's end, or after the snowstorm when the dream team was elected, but ding dong, now they're dead. A bright, whirly jukebox that plays a lot of artsy-fartsy claptrap, but one treasure is the old cassette of Brendan Behan singing Jingle Jangle Goes the Old Triangle, his party piece and mine, a chock-a-block collection that just looks higgledy-piggledy but melts the hearts of the hoity-toity and tickles the toes of the whippersnappers and the pipsqueaks. What good fortune. Thank you very much, everyone.